Hey guys, and today we're going to be having a look at basics of VMFS data stores and VM templates. First things first, we're going to have a look at the VMFS data stores, and we're going to go over how to rename them, how to manipulate them, how to create them, delete them, and merge them. So first things first, renaming. Now I have logged in, I'm on the data stores tab, and I have a data store called datastore 1. Now datastore 1 is not overly helpful, it doesn't describe what it is, so we're going to change its name and make it something that we can actually understand. So to do that, you find the particular data store you'd like to rename, right click on it and go to rename. Now you can call it whatever you want, but I'd tell you to choose something that's appropriate to what the actual storage data store is. In this case, it's the local for my ESXi 01, sorry. And just go OK, and it will rename it. Now looking at how to manipulate our storage, first things first, we need to gain connectivity to our storage to the particular LUN that we would like to actually pull across and use with our ESXis. So first things first, you need to go to hosts, select the host you'd like to set up your iSCSI with. Now mine's already set up, but you need to have a software adapter. So on the manage storage and storage adapters, you've got a list of all your adapters. Now you need a iSCSI software adapter to talk iSCSI. So to get one of those, you just hit the plus in the corner and it'll come up with a new one. Now from that, you need to take note of the IQN name. Now this IQN we're going to be using as our initiator. The initiator starts the conversation, and the target is the actual storage appliance that the initiator is talking to. Now this IQN is our identifier for it, so we need to make sure that our storage appliance knows the IQN of the initiator that is going to be talking to it. So taking our IQN, jump across to our storage adapter, our storage machine, and I've got a particular LUN that I'd like to use. Now it's 5 gigabytes, and if we check out its initiator groups, under the one that I've pre-created, it has the initiator for that particular software initiator for the iSCSI. Now you need to have your target, the storage appliance, needs to know your initiators. Your initiator needs to also know about targets. So you would just add in your initiator to the particular LUN you're wanting to manipulate. And popping back across, we'd like to start using it. So we have our storage adapter added, then we need to select it and go to targets, because we need to tell the initiator what targets it can talk to. So the easiest way to do that is to go to static discovery, add, put in the IP address or the fully qualified domain name, and hit OK. Once that's gone through, you might have to do a refresh, which is just a refresh or a rescan. Now it's going to constantly remind you to do it. You need to do it, otherwise you're not going to be able to see anything you change. Once it's fully picked it up, you'll be able to go to devices, and here's all the particular LUNs from the storage device that this particular initiator can talk to and actually manipulate. So we notice that the 5 gigabyte one that we'd created that I'd like to use is on our list. Now that it's on our list, we can manipulate it. So to convert this particular LUN that we now have access to into a data store, we need to go to the data stores. Okay, so to do it, we need to go onto our data stores, go to data center 1, right click, go to all vCenter actions, new data store. Now choosing its location, I'd like it to go with the rest of the data stores that I have. We need it to be a VMFS, because we're wanting to use a LUN. Next. Now we get to call it whatever we're going to call it. So I'm going to call it private VMFS-02, Now choosing a particular host will tell us all of the storage LUNs that were pulled across that we're not actually using. In this case, it just pops up with the 5GB one we're wanting to use. Go next. Leave the VMFS version as default. And then we get to choose how much of that particular LUN we'd like to use for this data store. Now, I'm going to choose 3. And then go next. And then it's just going to finalize and finish. Once it's been created, it'll pop up on the side and you can use it the same way you would use any normal data store. Now it's finished, notice that private VMFS 02 is up on the side. So we click on that, and we go to Manage and then Settings. General, we notice that it's got using roughly the 3 gigs of total space, and we'd like to increase it to use the full 5 that we originally gave it. So to do that we need to go to Increase. Still selecting the same particular LUN that we've sent across, and we're going to use, and we're going to use the free space of 2GB to expand it. Next, and finish. So we've just gone and increased the overall size to use the maximum amount of that LUN that we sent across. So now that we notice it's changed from the roughly 3 gigs it was, now to the full 5 gigs. Now to delete a data store, it's nice and simple. You find the data store you'd like to delete, right click on it, all vCenter actions, and delete data store. Now by deleting it, you're actually just removing the usage from it. So the LUN is still connected, but it's not actually being used by anything anymore. Awesome. One last thing you can do is you can add a LUN to an existing data store to increase the size. So we're going to use that extra 5 gigs and we're going to add it to our private VMFS 01 data store. Now to do this, you're going along the same, selecting the now unused LUN because we deleted it before, going next, and then we're going to go use all available partition. So it was at about 40 gigs, now once it extends it's going to be pretty close to 45 gigs. While this loads up, a few tips and tricks for this is one, making sure that you've got the appropriate connectivity between your host and your storage appliance. iSCSI is set up and enabled, and both the initiator knows the correct targets and the target knows all the correct initiators. For this particular section we're looking at VMs and templates. Overall we're looking at how to create a template from a VM, how to deploy a VM from that template, and how to clone a VM that's currently powered on. Now starting with how to create a template, on the side I've created a VM that to use for this. This could be anything you want. Most likely it's a just basically one you've set up that you're wanting to basically push out to everyone else. Make copies of, easily deploy it, stuff like that. So first things first, make sure your VM's set up the way you want it and that it is powered off. Once it's at that stage, you can right click on it, go all vCenter actions, and clone to template. Now you can call it whatever you want, so I'm just going to call it template 1, and then you're basically going to choose where you'd like that template to live. So I'm going to put it under templates, just basically selecting which machine's going to do it. So I'm just choosing one of my hosts. Now choosing your storage, ultimately it's up to you where you choose to store it, but I'm going to put it with the storage that I put for everything. In this case it is the shared storage between the two machines. So it's going to go in the private VMS 01. Next, keeping everything the same, and basically finish. Now in the corner it's just quickly cloning that particular VM into the template. Awesome, now that it's finished creating template, find the template 1 on the side where we told it to go, Now with this particular template, you could convert it back into the virtual machine if you want to back into a virtual machine if you're wanting to change anything on it, or you can deploy it. Now to deploy a virtual machine, there's multiple different ways to do it. You can create a normal virtual machine, and instead of creating a new one, it's on the list, deploy from template, or you can find the template, right click on it, and go deploy VM from this template. And of course you can call it whatever you need to call it, so, and where you want it to store. In this case it's just like creating a new virtual machine. So choosing the same storage appliance that we used for storing the template itself. And then you can obviously customize it, tell it to turn on bits and pieces automatically, or just once it's finished, it is just a normal VM, so you can tweak it and change it accordingly. There we go. Once it's finished creating the template, it'll come down like a normal VM. Now to deploy a template or create a template from a virtual machine that's running is a bit different. This may be for like things that you need that the particular VM you're wanting to clone or make a template of can't be turned off, because to create it normally you have to turn the VM off. So to do it without turning the VM off, find the particular VM that's powered on and you say clone to virtual machine. And then of course, so clone power on, and then just like before, choosing everything you need to do to create it. And finish. Now once it's finished, it'll come just like another VM just down the bottom. Now a few tips and tricks for this. So remembering that to clone to a template, the VM has to be turned off, but you can clone if the virtual machine is powered on, because you can't, maybe a situation that you can't turn it off. The other thing to keep an eye on is operating system licenses, keys for software that works, because it is very easy to deploy a new VM and you may quite quickly go through your allocated number of licenses or what you've been allocated. So keep an eye on that. So there we go guys, hopefully you found this informative and enjoy the rest of your day no matter what you're doing.